Welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to sew baskets or plant pots. Personally, I really enjoy giving away cuttings and I always sew plant pots to go with them. First, you're going to measure the plant pot, the little pot where you'll put your cutting. You do this by placing it upside down on a piece of paper, tracing around the edges and then measuring how big it is. With a compass, you can draw a nice circle because the basket or plant pot you're going to make is round. So here I'm using the compass to draw around the measurements. And if all goes well, the plant pot will fit inside. The pot is slightly conical, which is why I'm measuring it upside down. Conical means that it flares outward. Now we add an extra 1 centimeter seam allowance. So I don't have to calculate this on the fabric anymore. Now we're going to measure the circumference of the circle. And you do that by measuring the diameter and then multiplying that by pi, which is 3.14. So the diameter, which is half the circle, times 3.14. And that's how you can calculate the circumference of the circle. And you want to know that because if you know the circumference of the circle, you also know how long your piece of fabric needs to be for the outside of your pot. I've calculated it and put it on top. But you can also do it another way. If you don't have a calculator, you can simply place your ruler, if you have a flexible ruler or a measuring tape, along your drawing of the pot. That way you can also measure the circumference of your circle. So just do whatever you find easiest, whether that's using a calculator or a ruler. Now we know how wide it needs to be, but we don't yet know how tall it should be. I take the height of the pot here, but I add a few centimeters because I like my plant pot to have a folded over edge. So in this case, I add 5 centimeters, since that's a 2.5 centimeter folded edge. I write all of this down and then I know exactly what my pattern is for my pot. So the width is the diameter times pi. And the height is the height of the pot that I just measured. Now I have cut it out of the fabric twice. For the lining and the outside, I picked some nice contrasting fabrics. I like that. Because I think it's fun that when you fold it over, it's really a completely different color. And first you're going to sew the outside of the pot together. You do this by placing the right sides together and sewing straight along the edge. I'm not using any pins because the fabric is nice and sturdy, so it won't shift when sewing a small section. Now we're going to sew the bottom onto the outside. It's important that you see the right side of the fabric on the outside and also the right side of the fabric on the bottom. That's the bottom of the pot. When you sew, you turn it inside out, so the wrong side is facing out, and the wrong side of the bottom is facing out as well. And that's how you sew it on. When you turn it right side out, the seams are neatly hidden. Pin it down well because you don't want it to shift while sewing. I'm using plenty of pins now. Sew nice and slowly. You'll see that it creates some little pleats. But yeah, I actually think it's cute and fun when that happens. But of course, that's up to you. The slower you sew, the more you can adjust and guide it, and the fewer pleats you'll get. Well, when you come inside, turned inside out like this, you finish the first part of the plant pot. You'll do the same for the inside. As you can see, I've now sewn 2 pouches. And what we're going to do is put them together. You need to make sure you put the right sides together. So the right side of the lining faces inward and the right side of the outer fabric faces outward. I slide it in and pin it all the way around. Leave a turning hole open because in the end you'll turn them right side out so the neat side is on the outside. It's sewn all the way around, the turning hole is open. I don't know. Turn the basket inside out through the turning hole. That goes pretty easily for a moment. So make sure the turning hole is big enough when you do it. Otherwise it's a lot of hassle to turn the basket inside out. Or a blonde pot in this case. Once it's turned inside out, or once it's been turned, it looks like this. You can see the right side of the fabric facing out on both sides. What I'm going to do now is press the edges with an iron. Then I'll fold the edges at the turning hole inward as well, and then we'll stitch all the way around so it looks neat. Well, the pot is finished. Now you can decide for yourself which side is the outside and which edge you want to fold outward. And as you can see, you get a nice different color than the inside. It really stands out on the folded edge. Be sure to put a plastic bag inside if you're putting a plant in it, because watering and fabric don't go well together and stains on your table would be a shame. If you'd rather have a pattern for this and don't want to calculate it yourself, I'll put a link to the pattern in the video description below. Well, have fun sewing your basket.